A woman that has impacted my life, I've had a lot of women actually impact my life. And probably the strongest one is my mom, of course. She was a woman of faith. She had a lot of testimonies about Jesus, about God, about heaven, through some tragic stories in her life. But her brother died when he was 17, and he was able to testify when he was kind of in between that stage. That, he's like, don't cry for me, because where I'm going, it's beautiful. So I always just remember that story that goes with me everywhere. And she shared that with a lot of people, and brought a lot of people into the kingdom with that story as well.
Over my life, I've had a lot of women impact my spiritual life. Early in life, it was my mother, like most of us. But as I got older and didn't live in the house, other women have done that. And one particular woman who I have interacted with pretty infrequently over the years, but made an impact, is Elena Roscoe, one of our global partners down in Costa Rica. One of the first mission trips sticks in my mind when I went down there. Just her interaction with her sons. She has 3 sons, I have 3 sons, so there was a connection there. It's just how she interacted with her children, they were quite young at the time, and as we know, young children can be rambunctious. So how she was so soft-spoken, her whole spirit was very just quiet. And it was just so cool, and that has stuck with me in certain situations when I want to get excited or ramped up with somebody, like my kids back in the day or my grandkids now, where that gentle, quiet spirit that she showed to her kids at that time. And every time I do get to see her, which is only maybe once every 5 years or so now, that sticks with me, and how she interacts with people is such a gentle, quiet, in my opinion, God-honoring way. She probably does get angry, but you would never know that, how she interacts with people, even in stressful situations. When you have a team from the United States coming down and you're kind of in charge of them every day, it can get stressful, but she has just always shown that calm spirit that I long for at times in my life. So that's one who I keep, when this was proposed to us, her name stuck in my mind the most.
The woman in my life that has impacted my faith would have to be Corrie ten Boom. I read the book, The Hiding Place, as a teenager, and I was mystified that somebody that had endured such horrific circumstances could still be so in love with Jesus. Her love only grew. And if you don't know the story, she was living in Amsterdam during the Nazi occupation, and her family made the decision to offer a hiding place for the Jews. And they were able to rescue so many, but they were soon found out, and her whole family was taken into a concentration camp where her father died, her sister died, and she was released a day before her age group was gassed. And in her encampment, as she was trying to live out this faith, what I appreciated was that she wrestled with doubt. She had questions, and yet time and time again, she was able to see God's provision, and she was able to trust him when it really didn't make sense, and he didn't give her all the answers. And I think the telling tale is this. Her famous quote is, "There is no pit so deep that God is not deeper still." And that was her life motto. And because of her faith, my faith was impacted.
A woman in my life who has impacted my faith is part of our church family here at SCF, and that's Barbara Hart. I first got to know Barbara because we were both staff members of student summer camp a few years ago, and I was new here. I have only lived here about 4 years, and I think that was my first camp. So we were just kind of getting to know each other, and then when we got back from camp, she had asked me about getting together for coffee, and so I was glad to do that. Always glad to get to know people in the church and just meet up and be able to do that. And I caught on really quickly in that first coffee time that she had initiated that coffee, not because she needed anything from me, but because she wanted something for me. And she very quickly became such a safe space for me. She was the person that I could go to when I needed to pour out my heart, no matter what was in it, that I didn't need to be filtered with, that I didn't have to try to impress or have it together. She's that person that can ask, hey, tell me how you're doing. And I really can, and I can just go there. And she has so consistently been that picture of faithfulness to me. When I think about what it is to be a woman following Jesus, I love the Elizabeth Elliot quote where she says that being a woman does not make me a different kind of Christian, but being a Christian does make me a different kind of woman. And I've heard before, and I think this is so true, it's hard to be what we don't see. And I've had times in my life, I've lived away from family for pretty much all my adult life. And so even though I have some strong female influences in my life who are Jesus followers through my family, I've lived away from them for my adult life. And I've asked the Lord before, God, can you give me pictures? Can you put women in my life where I can see what it looks like to be a faithful followers of yours down the road? And Barbara has been that for me. She's the person I can look at and I see faithfulness, and I see gentleness, and I see steadfastness, and I see humility, and I see boldness, and I see kindness, and I see a faith in the person of Jesus that when I leave her presence, I feel like I've been near God. So Barbara has been that for me.
A woman in my life who has heavily impacted my faith is Carol Smitherman. I met Carol when I was just a few years old. She did ministry here at SCF with my parents, and she was also my Sunday school teacher. I don't have this huge memory of monumental moments when I was 4, but I do remember her being there. Carol has experienced the worst tragedy I could ever imagine, and that is the loss of a child. One thing that I will always carry with me, and that has heavily impacted my faith, is that Carol made the decision to handle the death of her daughter well. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but as she grieved, and she continues to grieve, and as she started a ministry for other parents who have experienced the loss of a child, Carol has rooted herself in God's grace and God's provision.